At the peak of his career, Jim Carrey was a force of nature, a human cartoon who could make the entire world laugh with a single rubber-faced expression. He was the first actor in history to command a $20 million salary. He had the mansions, the cars, and the adoration of millions. And then, at the height of it all, he walked away. The question that has lingered for years is simple. Why? Why would a man who had everything Hollywood promises, fame, fortune, influence, choose to leave it all behind? Today we are not just going to answer that question. We are going to explore a journey that goes far beyond the silver screen. A story about poverty, manifestation, a profound spiritual awakening, and a lesson that matters more than any box office number. This is the untold story of why Jim Carrey quit Hollywood after becoming a millionaire and what it can teach us about the true meaning of success. Before we can understand why he left, we have to understand where he came from. James Eugene Carey was born in 1962 in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada, the youngest of 4 children. For the first decade of his life, things were stable. His father, Percy, was an accountant and aspiring musician. His mother, Kathleen, was a homemaker. But when Jim was just 12 years old, the foundation of his world crumbled. His father lost his job when he was 51, a moment Carey would later describe as the real wow, the kick in the guts. The Carey family lost their home. They had to move into a Volkswagen van, living wherever they could park. To help his family survive, a teenage Jim worked 8-hour shifts after school as a janitor and security guard at a tire factory. He once said the experience made him want to bash somebody's head in, and that he went from being a straight A student to not wanting to know anybody's name that could become a friend. The class clown was born not from joy but from desperation, a way to shield his family from the pain of their reality. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. In the midst of this crushing poverty, a dream was taking shape, and it would reveal itself in one of the most famous acts of faith in Hollywood history. It's 1985. Jim Carrey is broke, depressed, and driving a beat-up Toyota Camry. He parks on Mulholland Drive, overlooking the city of Los Angeles, a city that had so far rejected him. And in a moment of sheer audacious belief, he pulls out his checkbook and does something that would become legend. He writes himself a check for $10 million. In the memo line, he scribbles 4 words, "for acting services rendered." Then he post-dates it, Thanksgiving 1995, a full decade in the future. At the time, this wasn't a practical financial plan. It was a declaration of intent. As he would later explain, when I wrote that check, it wasn't about the money. It was a message to myself that if I was making that kind of money, I knew I had to be one of the top guys. He didn't stop there. Night after night, he would drive up to Mulholland Drive, sit on the side of the road, and visualize his success. He would say to himself over and over, "I am a popular actor. Every director wants to work with me," until he actually believed it. This wasn't just daydreaming, he was rewiring his own brain, priming it to seek out the very opportunities he was visualizing. He kept that check, tattered and worn, in his wallet for years. Then, in 1994, his father passed away the same year the impossible happened. By that time, Jim Carrey had become the biggest movie star on the planet. He took that original fulfilled $10 million promise and placed it in his father's casket. The boy who once lived in a van was now officially a millionaire many times over. The rise was meteoric, as 3 movies in a single year changed everything. The breakthrough started small. In 1990, he joined the cast of Fox's groundbreaking sketch show, In Living Color. There, his character work and physical comedy were unleashed on a national audience. But 1994 was the year the dam truly burst. In an 11-month span, he starred in a trio of box office smashes that are still in the cultural zeitgeist today: Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. The financial leap mirrors the magnitude of his success. He was paid just $450,000 for Ace Ventura. By the same year, his agents demanded and received $7 million for Dumb and Dumber. Just 2 years later, in 1996, he made history by becoming the very first actor to be paid $20 million for a single film, The Cable Guy. He had turned a fantasy chick into a financial reality, becoming one of the highest grossing actors of all time. But as the applause grew deafening, a quiet creeping question started to echo inside his own mind. Is this all there is? From the outside, Jim Carrey had it all. From the inside, he was beginning to feel like he was trapped inside a character. And that character was Jim Carrey, the movie star. The weight of that persona was crushing. He would later reveal a secret struggle with depression that nearly ended his career, noting that fame is fleeting. He described the feeling in a way that hits you right in the gut. Depression is your body saying, "Fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created, and the world is too much for me." The very identity the world was celebrating was the one draining his soul, and the cracks began to show. In 2015, his ex-girlfriend Catriona White tragically died by suicide, a loss Carey described as a hit with a lightning bolt. Behind the rubber-faced entertainer was a man in profound pain, openly admitting that something deeper had to change. The change would not be found on a movie set, but in the silence of a spiritual transformation he never saw coming. For years, Carey had been searching for an answer outside himself. The pivotal moment came when he found the work of spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, author of The Power of Now. The philosophy struck him with the force of a revelation. In 2009, he took the stage at a conference and described his spiritual awakening. "I woke up and suddenly got it," he said. "I understood suddenly how my thoughts were just an illusory things." He began to realize that the voice in his head, the one telling him he needed to be more successful, more famous, more loved, was the source of his sufferings. He described a thunderous moment where he was suddenly thrown into this expansive, amazing feeling of freedom from myself, from my problems. He understood that his purpose wasn't to collect more movie credits. It was, as he put it, "I want to take as many people with me as I can toward this understanding." This new identity freed him from the need for Hollywood's validation, but he still had to confront the very system that had made him a star. As his inner world was transforming, the movie business was also changing in ways he no longer recognized. He became increasingly disenchanted with what he saw as the corporatization of creativity. In a telling 2018 interview, he confesses, "I just didn't want to be in the business anymore. I didn't like what was happening, the corporations taking over and all that." He didn't want to sit in another meeting where a committee explained why he needed to change his character to appeal to a four-quadrant demographic. For a man who had rediscovered his soul, selling out felt like a betrayal. By 2022, he made it official, telling the world he was fairly serious about retiring. "I've done enough," he said. So, what does a man do when he leaves a kingdom of lights and cameras? He creates for the sake of creating. He found a new voice through visual art, and he began painting with a vengeance, raw, politically charged portraits. His artwork was no longer a hobby, it had become his primary voice. He was finally in complete control of his own canvas, living by the very lesson that millions of dollars and global fame had taught him. Jim Carrey's story is a paradox that shatters the Hollywood myth. He achieved every single dream the world told him to chase, only to discover that real peace wasn't found in a $10 million check or the roar of a crowd. It was found in the quiet realization that Jim Carrey, the movie star, was just a role he'd been playing. And here's the most human and perhaps most beautiful twist in his story. Recently, he came out of retirement for a very specific reason, not solely for art's sake, but because, as he admitted with his signature candid honesty, he needed the money. Life is not a fairy tale where spiritual awakenings pay the property tax. He also returned to play a genius in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, a role he took, jokingly admitting, which was a bit of a stretch. This isn't a contradiction, it's the full picture of a human being. He's not a monk on a mountain. He's a man trying to balance the material and the spiritual, just like the rest of us. So what can we take from the man who walked away? First, that the life you want starts with a belief so powerful it feels like a check you can't get cash. Jim Carrey visualized success from the seat of a beat-up Toyota Camry. and those nightly rituals of intense self-belief primed his brain to find that success in reality. The lesson is clear: if you can see it and feel it, you can start building the path toward it even when every odd is stacked against you. Second, that fame and fortune aren't destinations, they're just louder versions of the same empty room you're already in. Carrey's fight with depression didn't vanish when he became rich, it intensified. The mask he wore as an actor became a cage, and his avatar became a burden on his body and mind. His experience teaches us that constantly performing a version of yourself that isn't true takes a devastating toll, and the first step toward mental well-being is learning to drop that exhausting act. Finally, that freedom is having the courage to redefine success on your own terms. Walking away from millions of dollars and the world's applause is an act of profound self-respect. He left the business because his inner voice mattered more than a corporate company's marketing strategy. For you, that might not mean quitting your job, but it might mean finding a creative outlet that doesn't require a committee's approval, or learning to value your own inner peace as much as your bank account. Jim Carrey once said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." He took the ride so he could tell us where the real treasure isn't buried. Thank you for watching. If this story connected with you, take a moment to look at that check you've been afraid to write to yourself and consider what might happen if you finally believed it was real. We'll see you in the next video.